Welcome. So glad you're here. So glad you made it. First of all, what do you guys think of the new hair? Thumbs up or thumbs down? And you appear to be underage. Oh, well, that's always a plus. I need to see your ID, otherwise I can't sell alcohol. And that's good because I don't drink alcohol. Otherwise, I end up in weird places. If you would, please share this out because I think this is going to be an interesting conversation today. We're going to be doing an interview shortly with Alex from Alex in Wonderland. After I saw Alex's video today, I was like, I really liked his video. But before we do that, I want to show you some other things. So there's always been this conversation about, is there alien life? You know, people see what I've always been called, what's I've always known them as UFOs. Now they're called UAPs. As most of you might know, back last year, there was a big document dump. They had to share information they had. That in fact, there was knowledge that there was some potential life out there. Life that we're not aware of. Life that we here on Earth do not understand or really know about. We see fleeting, there have been people who've seen fleeting glimpses of things, had experiences, including myself. I was in bed. I just had pretty much went to bed. And I remember, I opened my eyes and there was this group of, I had a sense of. Now, I'm not crazy. I was not seeing things. I don't know what happened, but I'm just going to straight tell you. So I looked up and there was at the end of my bed, like several, visually, I could see several entities, maybe 9 to 12. It was like a group and they were stacked. They were like higher up. You know, there was some down here. Okay, like they were on risers. And I know that sounds crazy. And they had like a black cloak with hoods. Black cloak with hoods. Now, I jumped out of bed immediately, turned on my light, jumped out of bed and went into the living room. And it's in this house. Came into the living room and told my parents. And, you know, they, of course, thought I was crazy or maybe I'd been drinking or something. I mean, it was not normal. And it was out of the norm. My parents had a sighting once, many years ago. They had an experience. And my father is like the most grounded person you could ever imagine. The most grounded, rational person. Now, right up till he died, you know, he always would try to play it down, but he remembered it. But my mother very clearly remembered something coming right down on a dark road, very strong, very straight stretch of a dark road, and something flying down like right on top of their car, and it just kept going in front of them really fast. At night, 2-lane highway. Trees on either side. Very weird thing. My father acknowledges it happened, but he always wanted to say it was, he would never commit to what it was. Let me just put it that way, but he never denied what it might be. All right, so I know that within my own family I've had these couple of experiences, and then Alex will get into his. I want to share some information, though, before we move on into Alex, because, you know, I think that it's important to look at, we're not the only crazy people on the street. One of the ways, and this may sound, here's some of the ways that people identify with someone, an angel, or let a spirit may be trying to make a connection with us, you know. Oh, Alex, how are you doing?
Good. Just listening to you and all the facts.
Good. So, first of all, do you want to give us a little bit of background? Why did you decide to do this video today?
I thought, what better way to start my journey on YouTube of talking about aliens and spirits and entities than to share my own experiences.
So I urge you to go listen to the whole video and really try to look past the word, those few words, because there's some emotional sharing and explaining about these experiences. Do you want to talk more about that, Alex?
Yeah, my phone was turned over, so because I don't like light on when I'm sleeping, there was nothing else emitting light in the room. And out of nowhere, I see a little blue light, like a grain of sand size, floating around my room, glowing brightly. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what is this? You know? And it grew to, out of nowhere, they just started appearing, thousands of them, and they formed into a man. And the man was hovering between the ceiling and the floor, in between. He was tall, probably 6 or 7 feet tall, I would say. Um, and he was wearing a robe. He had a long beard. He was carrying a bag. And if you look back at ancient Sumeria, we see almost identical what I saw in my room. Let me explain something before I go on with the story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when about 3 days before that,
Mm-hmm.
I had prayed to any God, not Christian's God, but even Christian's God. I prayed to Jesus, God, Yahweh, Ilanka, which is our tribal God. I prayed to Buddha. I prayed to uh, Allah. I did them all. Odin, Zeus. They were all in there. It was a giant prayer because
Okay.
I felt a calling from the beyond that I'm greater than myself and I had a bigger purpose. And as you know, I had been trying to get together a Native American mixed blood group for a while.
Right.
And at 16 is when I started that journey, really. And
Yeah.
in the prayer, I had asked, please send me a sign that I'm meant to lead my people. And 3 days later, we have the light man showing up in my room.
Uh-huh.
And what does he do? He floats to the end of my bed and then stares at me and then floats to the side of my bed. And I'm sitting straight up in bed at that moment. And I'm like, I cannot move. I just could not move. And he puts his finger out like this, like he puts his hand out with his finger, like, what you would see in the Sistine Chapel or something of like God and humanity, the knowledge touch.
Yeah. Yes.
It was that. And the moment that our fingers touched, all of the hair on my body stood up. And I felt electricity just going through my body, like insane amount of electricity just shooting through my body. And um, then after that, he backed away and he bowed to me in a full bow for like a good 5 to 10 seconds. Stood up while he was floating, but stood up and then slowly backed away. And as he backed away, he dissipated away into nothingness. And that's the first story. Second story is you and dad sent me to church camp. And while there, I try not to poop in public. As much as I can, I try not to because I have like this fear of it for some reason. And I think most people have that phobia, but they just won't talk about it. So, but I will. I'll say it right here. I don't shit in public. Pardon my English. So, you know, I went 3 nights without a good poop. And on that fourth night, while I was asleep, I had a dream of the light man, and that he was in the cabin that I was staying in. And he was, again, I don't know why he's floating. Like, it's a dream. Come on, he could walk in this if he wanted to. So the light man is floating. And so he is like telling, like, psychically telling me, get up out of bed and follow me. You have to. And I did. And in the dream, this was not, now the first one that happened, the first story, I was not dreaming. I know for a fact I was not dreaming. It's real. It happened. The second story involves half a dream, half not a dream. So in the dream, I get up out of bed, and then the next thing you know, we're on the pathway. I don't even know how we got on the pathway, but we were on the pathway. And he guides me down the pathway, and we get into the lodge. And then he guides me into what was a bathroom. Like, it had a shower, a toilet, a sink, and it was private. A private toilet and shower and bathroom. Anyways, so shortly after that, I woke up, and it was 4:30 in the morning. I get up. I said, I really got to go to the bathroom. What's going to hurt to try it and just see if it's there? And so I went and I looked. And what do you know? The bathroom that was in my dream was right there in real life, identical to in the dream. That day that I went and found that private bathroom from the dream in real life, that day we were told we're going to go on boats, and we're going to be towed behind them on tubes. And so I went on one, and I was being towed by like a mini yacht. It was just a big boat with like bedrooms below, seating for like 20, 25 up top. Big boat. I'm on the tube, and the guy had been drinking. He had been drinking, and next thing you know, he's over the speed limit, and I'm up in the air. His wife said that I went straight up and then did a flip in the air, and then straight up and down, went through into the water, barely made a splash. And then the next thing you know, I woke up underwater to someone saying my name. Now, I don't know if anyone has ever woken up underwater after being in a mild accident like that, because that's what it is. Your body is in a mild accident when you're thrown across the water on a tube. And so anyways, I woke up. I had been unconscious, underwater. I was about 15, 20 feet from the surface. And the light man was under the water with me. And he was like up towards the surface, like his feet, and he was like head down towards me. And he was floating, and he had his arm out, and he's like, take my hand. And I take his hand, and I just know that I go from 15 to 20 feet below the water, and I had just been pulled up to almost the surface. And I swam up the rest of the way. It was one of the most crazy experiences.
When you were underwater, do you remember feeling a sense of fear, or when you come? Because I can imagine hitting the water and maybe getting knocked out or jolted and going underwater. So do you remember feeling anything when you came to and then you saw your light man?
Yeah, I was tied up in the life vest. I
Okay.
had hit the water so hard that it ripped the life vest off of me and entangled me in it. So I'm being choked by the life vest that's trying to pull me to the surface. But it was like something was trying to keep me in the water. That's the only thing I can explain. It was like something was holding me in the water. And then the light man shows up and is like, grab my hand. I grab his hand, boom. I'm up to the surface and I just have to go boom, boom, I'm up. So I didn't really have time to feel fear. But because I woke up, I'm like, oh no, I'm underwater. And I couldn't like move. Like I couldn't, the life vest should have been carrying me to the surface, which is the crazy part is that life vest, for one, of ripped off. Two, choked me. Three, was not doing its job. And I don't know if it was some spiritual entity or whatever that was trying to keep me underwater because I had been given some kind of knowledge that I'm not supposed to have. But isn't that how it goes in history? Is that people who are given the knowledge, they are given the knowledge of whatever is beyond, a lot of them end up dead.
Well, there is some thoughts on that actually that and I've experienced it in a little different way than you experienced it. I know that when I was 18 is when I accepted Christ as my Savior. I was 18 years old. I intentionally made that decision, and then and it was a great summer. I had a great experience. The church I went to was like a family. I was in love with God. I was in love with the experience, the whole thing. And then for several years going forward, I had some barriers of my own about who I am, that became barriers to me and a relationship. You know, my relationship with God, who I call God and I believe to be God. And so, yes, that barrier can happen in many different ways. You know, and by the way, I believe that is a negative. I always call it the dark energy, a dark entity that's always working to undermine me. But it comes through me. You know, they're my issues, my concerns, my problems with my own self. So I do get it, but I've experienced a little bit more about me being the kind of the barrier, or that, excuse me, the vehicle that the darkness uses to undermine my life and my connection with God.
Well, can I touch on something really quick?
Sure.
So, uh, it really ties into the next part, the last part of my experience with the light man. And it ties into your first experience that preceded my experience. So I want to go on here and say, first of all, before I say this story, that I'm not saying anyone's belief systems are wrong. Okay? This is my experience of what I experienced firsthand. Not something that was written thousands of years ago. This actually happened to me.
So you're not putting down other people's experiences, other people's belief systems, which might be
Right.
contrary to what you're talking about.
Right.
Okay.
So, your niece, Emily, and her roommate and I, we did a past life regression. But we didn't really know what we were doing, and she ended up doing a channeling. And it was like the entity that came through me had been waiting for a very long time to be released and let out. And so when she opened that door, we learned a lot about the light man, about one of my main purposes, supposedly. But so that is, I'm on live stream.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I told you.
So sorry. I want to see if you want
It's
some
okay.
lunch.
No, thank you. We're both live streaming.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So
So you Emily ended
what was
up
I saying?
you were there was a channeling that happened. Now, did that channeling go through you or through Emily? Is where I'm a little confused.
Through me.
Okay.
So I'm sitting in a chair like I am now, like this, and she starts what we now know as channeling, and a spirit, an entity, a god, whatever you want to believe, came through me and spoke to me. It was like I had left my body and I was in another realm, in a whole nother realm with this entity. And I was usually in like a library. So it was like this gorgeous, like Romanesque library. And was probably 4 stories tall. And it had this ladder. And I remember thinking, why use the ladder if you can float? you know? But you look out the window and it's just space. It it was like this little library that was giant, if that makes any sense. And in the middle of space. And it was just me and him. And it was like our meeting room, our war room, if you will. And in it, I learned things that, according to this entity, the light man, claims to be Enlil, which I don't know if you know much about the Anunnaki.
That's what I was going to ask. Is I've heard the name Enlil before, and is Enlil a positive or a negative spirit or entity?
Well, um,
And feel
in my
free.
opinion,
Uh huh.
Enlil's a good entity
Okay.
because Enlil is all about we need to unite, we need to have peace, we need to stop these wars. They're only for distraction purposes. His whole purpose is to have me like help the world as I can. And that was part of him blessing me when I was 16 years old, is that he blessed me back then to lead. And so if, I don't know if the Pope talks to God like this, but if the Pope talked to God like the way I talked to Enlil, I would probably be a Catholic.
So do you believe that they're all of these experiences are kind of like an opening to when you made this connection originally with the spirit at about age 16 to your experience when you were about 26 with your cousin?
Well,
It's all the same. It's all the
if
same
you
entity.
recall, yes, it's the same entity. It's the same entity
Okay.
for it all. He looks in the when I'm being channeled, when I'm in the channeling, and we're in that, I'll call it the channel. When we're in the library channel chamber, um, wait, tell me what you just said.
I was asking if you felt like the entity was all the same from when you first had
right.
your
So what?
experience to 26.
When I was 16, the very first time I saw him in the channel, he looked like a real life version, like a human real life version of the Light Man, like identical. Even the
I
way
don't know who that is.
even the way his feet hung in the air, like this. Like if you were floating in the air, your feet would hang. Their feet hung the same way, same robe, same bag. Um, it's mind-boggling to an extent.
Well, and do you feel like each time that it's been, what kind of experience would you say it is on a scale of 1 to 10 being, 1 being very scary, worst, bad thing, and 10 being the best experience that you could possibly have?
For me, a 10.
A 10? Okay. And what?
However, it scared Emily and her roommate. And she has vowed to never do another channeling.
Well, so you guys were doing something, you didn't know what you were doing, and you were. So, what I believe, so let me tell you something I believe to be true, and I have many, I can back it up, is that I believe there's a spirit world. I believe that human, we're all at some level, there's some spirit, connection, whether we like it or not, to something, okay? And I believe, for me, what works, what I believe to be true. So I also know that I am very careful about what I allow into that spot in me, where I believe, because I believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and I don't generally allow anything. I don't toy with that stuff.
Do you think that by not toying with it, you're closing off a part of what God would want you to explore? Like, if you believe in the Holy Spirit, you should want to participate in something to do with that. In what world would you not want to communicate with your own God?
Oh no, I'm
You
not
pray on
saying
a daily basis.
yes, yes,
And I'm
and
able to communicate with, in my opinion, and from what I'm told, Enlil is the God that everyone prays to. When they're praying to God, supposedly they're praying to Enlil. And modern day Christianity supposedly has been part of a cover-up going back to the Council of Nicaea and before.
I understand you have that whole. Alex has very much studied, deeper than even I've studied, as far as he can really talk about the Council of Nicaea. I also believe, I believe there's, in the church overall, I'm going to see it. So it was what turned to be the Roman Catholic Church. There is a government, of course, there's a hierarchical of government. And for whatever reason, and I'm not sure, and I am not a prophet, I am not a scholar of the Bible as far as that goes. I have, so I can't say why, but there were books. I know what you're alluding to, which is beyond what this particular show is going to be about today. Is that you're alluding to those books
The Nag Hammadi Library.
the see what I'm saying? The Nag Hammadi Library were left out, and they're real. They're real books that were written of the time of Christ and before. And so I don't know why that happened, and I'm going to leave that there because that I'm not prepared for. And so, but
I'm
I
just going to
trust.
leave it. I'm going to leave the part of that to my last part on that is going to be that today, women today feel the repercussions of the Book of Mary being removed from the Bible, modern day women feel the repercussions of that, because it's been males, 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 when in reality, there was female ministers back in the day, including Mary Magdalene.
Oh, and I don't disbelieve that. Okay,
She
so
was one of his biggest prophets, and one of his biggest disciples, and they took her book out. And now look at how women are being treated today by the masculine society that's been established. It's disgusting, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
it's an extremely that's a big conversation. And again, personally, I am not prepared for that, but I do appreciate what I appreciate. One of the things I appreciate about you, Alex, is that you've studied a lot of things like that, like the Nag Hammadi Library, about the Council of Nicaea. Now, I do know some things, but separate from that, about your own personal experience, that's very real and very much happened to you and that you went through. What would you say was can you tell us that maybe something that you feel helped connect you to who you are today? Is there anything in specific about
Yes.
those experiences?
Basically, I have come to the realization through my experiences with Enlil that our current world is in a crisis beyond what we know. Because we're not being told things by the government, and that's a fact. They kept the UAPs silent for how many years since Roswell? It took 60, 70 years for them to come out with, oh, by the way, here's some images and stuff you might want to know about that's happened.
And, who do you think profited, so to speak, from having all of these decades, really, all of these decades there's people who believe, and it may or may not be true, that there was wreckage that they got from that particular event. So,
they did, in my opinion.
and so we both, we also know other people that we know to be reliable, that have had experience with what could be part of the UAPs. What are they again, Alex? UAP?
Unidentified aerial phenomena.
Right. And by the way, I'm going to plug a show. It's not even a YouTube show, by the way. Oh, good Lord. It's about a place in Utah. I watch it every week. Oh, please help me. Let's just keep talking. It'll come to my mind, and then I will put it in the chat. So I'm always interested in spiritual things. I have had those experiences in my life a few times in my life, and
oh, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but I need to finish what I was going to say. It's important. In my experiences with Enlil, one of the first things that I was told by Enlil is that the whole possibility of me being the vessel, the earthly vessel for Enlil in today's time, it was because of you. Without you being open at a certain time, Enlil would never have even come to our life. And he was carried through you to me. You were put in place for a reason, and it was so that he could get to me. And he did. And I am grateful for whatever you did back in the day. I don't know whatever you did, but thank you, because I believe that I know what's real, and that is there's an energy realm that people live in, their energy, and energy entities, we'll call them. Some people would call them spirits or angels. And everyone has their own place in this energy realm. And kind of like in communism, you will get you'll get assigned a job. And that job, you then, you go to it and you work it, and then like they may retire you and then someone else goes to work it. So from what I understand is that while we're not on Earth, while we're not in human form, when we're in our energy form, we're in that energy realm. And that when we get like put in a body, like our whole line is set out for us by Enlil or his father, whoever, in my opinion. And then like I was picked because of something you did. And so they then said, okay, that line now. And it was my turn. So my energy, Enlil's energy, was put into your uterus. And it became me. And it, to me, makes sense that I was born an only child because it wasn't, the energy of Enlil is so old that in my opinion, if you would have had a second child, you and the child would have died, in my opinion. I know.
May I ask why? Why would that have, why? I don't know why.
Because the energy of Enlil is so great that it's only meant for one human person.
Okay.
And once you were blessed by Enlil, you could only have one child. Because there's only one. That's from what I understand.
Okay. Well, so you definitely, I never really considered a second child after you, as we've had this conversation, because first of all,
I'm
not
just letting you know that the reason that you didn't have a second child, we've talked about. And I just want to let you know that there's a reason that all of those problems were put in our life. It was so that you would never have a second child. That's
Okay.
what I've been told.
Well, and that may be, but I'm just going to say, I have 5 siblings, and they're all females, and they all have children. I'm the only one with one child. So I came from a large family, and most of my siblings had several children, but I was never known to be a child person. I didn't babysit much. I really did not care for children too much. I just, I was busy doing other things. And so when Richard and I decided to get pregnant, it was intentional. We wanted a child. We were ready for a kid. And so that was my sole purpose in life there forward. When I had him, now this will probably sound foolish to people who have had children, you're always, for the most part, especially if you're planning a child, you're going to love your child. I fell in love with my kid. I fell in love in a way I can't explain, nor did I anticipate loving anything in that manner. It was all consuming. And then considering I was kind of a problem child, I was given a kid, and I'm not bragging. Okay, really, truthfully, if he had been a brat as a child, I would say Alex was a brat as a child, but I was given the most perfect little human child God could have given a mom. This kid was perfection until he was about 16 or 17, and he realized I was never actually going to kill him, that he was going to be able to do pretty much what he wanted to do. Okay, so truthfully, I skated.
I'm just letting you
I
know. It really, you're just telling this story, and I'm like, wow, that's so crazy because, you know, I was sent through you to the world, according to my experience with in-law. And so saying that I was like a good child is because of who I was sent here to be represented of. And so when you say God couldn't have given me a better child, you're so on the money. You can call him whatever you want to call him, but you were given a child, a very special child. That's all I gotta say. And I'm gonna bid you adieu.
All right. Well, first of all, let me say thank you so much for the interview, Alex. I'm sure you and I will have many more conversations about this. And I do count myself lucky. I genuinely will tell you, I count myself lucky to have been given the kid that I got. Now, his husband would tell you I should have said the word no a few times to him, and we would all be living a little bit more of a calm life. But I didn't say no much because I'm sorry. I just loved him so much. I wanted him to be, anyway, so I was kind of meaning that jokingly, but I'm not really joking. And, but, you were a great kid. And I love that you're so open to things, Alex. I love that long before anything that you knew these different things like the Nag Hammadi Library and the Council of Nicaea and what that even meant. You
Well,
knew
I
that
don't know
very
if you
young in
remember
life.
when I was young, like
Yes.
4 or 5 years old, and I would speak different languages, but they'd be intermixed. So it's not
Yes.
like I was speaking a full language, like a full sentence in like
Right.
Arabic, but I'd be mixing German and Arabic and Spanish all into one, and later finding out that, oh, all those years I was speaking this language and this language and this language just jumbled up. It's like how the Tower of Babylon, everyone spoke the same language, but then they were all put all over the world. Well, I had all the languages put inside of me, and next thing you know, I'm putting out jumble, you know, and without special training, in certain cultures, they take holy children and they shape them into holy leaders, like the Dalai Lama. That's exactly what they do. When the Dalai Lama dies, they go find the other child, and then that child is raised, and then from the time they're found, they're the Dalai Lama, and they bless people, all that stuff, and so that's that.
Well, we are blessed to have you, and I mean that, and I love you, and thank you for sharing with us, and I
I love
appreciate
you
you, and I
too.
appreciate your information.
And thank you so much for having me. It's been great. And I wanted to just tell everybody that I'm gonna have a UFO or UAP shirt on my merch line because I just started my own merch line. AlexLand.shop. Again, that's AlexLand.shop. If you go there, we have a couple of designs right now. The happy face, that's a deep space picture, and also lips that are kissy lips. It's really cute stuff, but I'm going to do a UAP one that's
Okay.
going to be really cute and funny as well.
I'm sure you will, because he comes up with some real. He and his husband have both. They've come up with some great stuff, but I think Alex does most of the design. I could be wrong, but anyways, we'll take a look at it maybe before we sign off today. But thank you so much, and I'm going to
All
let you
right.
drop down. Bye
Okay,
bye.
love you.
Love you. So that is a lot of information. I mean, seriously, that's a lot of depth of information. But he really truly has had this like a spiritualness about him from very early in life, and and had good experience. He always had a great experience with the church that we chose to raise him in, and that is not what he pursues today, and that's his decision and his choice, and I always support his freedom to do different, or to do different than I do, or than I believe, and that's all right. And so I'm just grateful that he is someone who can think and process and come up with ideas. And those experiences are real because I've been his mom for 33 years. And so I know when he had these experiences, especially the church one, I'm telling you, it was a big deal. And he told me when it happened, when he came home afterwards, and I was like, you're going to have to learn to use a bathroom in public, Alex.